It pains me to report this story, but I must. Hi, my name is Suri Crowe, and you are watching the MeidasTouch Network.
إشي لليهود بس. إن أطفأتم كاميرا فسنشغل آلاف الكاميرات. الحمد لله رب العالمين على كل إشي، صابرين وكل شيء. كان نقطة ضعفنا بابا وهي راح، مش بعناش منه أصلا. كنت كثير متربكة وخايفة كثير عشان يعني أول مرة. صار يشجعني يقول لي أنت بطلة، أنا بعرفك قوية، أنت جريئة، أنت مش هيك. أنا لولا إنك أنت جريئة كمان دخلتكيش. طب إذا أنت تعبانة خلص وقفي. دائما كان هيك يحكي لي خلص إذا أنت تعبتي خلص، إذا أنت شاطرة جدعة يا بابا برافو. دائما هيك يحكي لي. الحمد لله راح.
That was Sumaya, and Israel killed her father, her daddy, and so many, many other parents and children. Israel is murdering many families right now in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, for no other reason than because they can. And we Americans are funding their genocidal acts. And here we are in the middle of this illegal war of choice against Iran and Lebanon, nations that did nothing to instigate this with the United States. And we are here because Benjamin Netanyahu told Donald Trump he must do it. The source is New York Times reporting. And at $2 billion a day, $400 million worth of lost aircraft, at least 13 casualties that we know of, hundreds of wounded, and thousands of dead Iranians and Lebanese, the DNC decides to kill a resolution to condemn AIPAC influence over the Democratic Party in elections. From the New Republic, the DNC Resolutions Committee also punted on two other resolutions on recognizing a Palestinian state and conditioning military aid to Israel. It's clear that the Democratic establishment is not ready to let go of AIPAC, even as Israel's genocide on Gaza and influence on American politics has become perhaps the defining progressive issue of this era. AIPAC wouldn't be spending millions of dollars every year trying to oust progressive Democrats if that wasn't the case. And while public opinion continues to shift sharply against it, party leadership continues to squirm and offer non-answers when confronted with that reality. Once again, Representative Ro Khanna of California is on the forefront of where the Democratic Party should be.
Shockingly, the DNC just voted down a resolution condemning AIPAC dark money spending. How out of touch do you have to be? AIPAC spent $14 million of dark money in Illinois primaries. And you know what? Two presidential candidates for 2028 lobbied DNC members to get them to vote this down. Let me be pretty clear. Anyone who hopes to lead this party must condemn and reject AIPAC money. And anyone who hopes to lead this party must be against another dollar going in military aid to Israel. Final point. We as Democrats need to reject all super PACs in Democratic primaries, whether running for the House, the Senate, or the presidency.
By the way, I have my ideas of who at least one of those presidential candidates was, but we need to know who they both were. It's simply inexcusable that two people who aren't even out there for 2028 would have that much sway over what the DNC decides to do when the constituents, when the voters have made it absolutely clear they want to separate from AIPAC. In fact, 60% of Americans have an unfavorable view of Israel, which is up sharply since 2022. And that same survey found that 56% of U.S. Jews have little or no confidence in Benjamin Netanyahu. Those numbers are coming from a Pew Research study, and that actual headline that I just showed you there was from a Jewish publication. Meanwhile, Chuck Schumer was literally spewing AIPAC talking points yesterday as this DNC position came out, which is why, as bad as terribly unpopular, as hated as Donald Trump currently is, and as unpopular as the Republican policies are, the Democratic Party's favorability rating is in the sewer.
Democrats. I mean, these numbers are just atrociously awful. A double A for the Democrats here. I mean, just take a look here. Congressional Dems have the right priorities. Look at this. Overall, 74%, nearly 3 in 4 say no. Just 25% overall say yes. You might say, okay, well, at least Dems like Democrats. Not the case. Look at this. The majority of Democrats are independents who lean Democrats. Look at this. 55% say no, congressional Democrats do not have the right priorities. And then you just see a minority, 45% of Democrats say that congressional Democrats have the right priorities. This to me just jumps out at the screen because it screams primary challenges all over the map. And it says that even if Democrats don't like Donald Trump, they don't like their own party either when it comes to Congress. And overall, I mean, my goodness gracious.
So this is sort of like Democrat on Democrat crime here. What's overall approval among Democrats of their leaders?
Yeah, okay. So, you speak about Democrat on Democrat crime. And I want to know how unusual what we're seeing right now about how Democrats feel about Democrats in Congress is. Take a look at this. This is a trend line going back through the years, midterm elections in which there's a GOP president. Look at this. In 2006, Dems' net approval of congressional Democratic leaders was plus 28. You go back to the last midterm, look at that, plus 19. Very much on the positive side. The bottom has fallen out. The bottom has fallen out. Minus 4 points. That is Democrats' own net approval of their own congressional leaders. Even Democrats don't like their own leaders when it comes to Congress. And overall, of course, the numbers are just absolutely awful. So Democrat on Democrat crime, absolutely. This to me screams, again, primary challenges across the map. And it screams to me, hey, when it comes to those next leadership elections, maybe something might be cooking.
Screaming for primary challengers. And I'll get to that in just a moment. Jake, who is a Marine Corps liberal, he calls himself, on Twitter, says these two are not the answer. And there's a photo of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. And he says, you want to know why approval numbers for the Democratic Party are in the shitter? Start with these two. It's time for fresh faces, fresh ideas, and an end to the performative bullshit that has been a hallmark of this party for the past decade. And to prove that point, here is Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin getting all worked up at a Xavier College student for merely asking her about her heavy AIPAC donations.
Just prepared. So, sorry. Basically, going back to what was said over here, you have not taken money from AIPAC, but pro-Israel lobbies and their donors have spent $4.5 million on your campaigns. But I do have a question unrelated to that. I just wanted to add that. So I'm curious why left-leaning media, well, I guess mainstream media and establishment Democrats are spending energy attacking influencers like Hassan Piker, as has been in the news lately, and why the Democratic establishment is just like immune to criticizing Democratic leadership like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, who are some of the main drivers in the reason that the Democratic Party is at its lowest approval rating in history.
A couple of things. First, just to correct the record, I'm not sure what you're referring to on not AIPAC, but the Israel lobby. If you're equating Israel lobby to Jews, I got a problem with that. And that just like you wouldn't say, the Iranian, Iranians, whatever happens, the Iranian government does is what Iranian Americans believe. I think it's really important, especially now, to make a distinction between the Israeli government and the choices that they're making and the average Jew, okay? And Jewish people who donate to campaigns. So I feel very strongly about that. But in terms of,
notice she never answers his question. She just gaslights the absolute bejesus out of him. And to be clear, questioning or criticizing the war crimes of Israel, the abject war crimes. I mean, this is not a question now. We know that Israel is committing objective war crimes in Gaza, in the West Bank, in the Golan Heights, and now in Lebanon. That is a fact. And she's turning it into, you're anti-Semitic, which is the effing gaslighting that these Zionists try to pull off. And it's what AIPAC uses as the battering ram to make sure that the Democratic Party stays entrenched with them so that this vicious cycle continues. It's really just disgusting. And it's people like Senator Slotkin and so many others who have got to go. They are Republicans with a D on their nameplate only, and they are the reason that we are in this mess. Here's the good news, guys. There are a slew of true progressives who are running in primaries against these corporate entrenched Democrats, and they're also running against, Republicans and in open seats across the country, and, all of whom are bought and paid for politicians. And I've been speaking to a number of these progressives who are committed to being AIPAC free, for abolishing, not reforming ICE, for expanding healthcare, for renewable energy, and so on. Here is Melissa Byrd, who is running against the Democratic incumbent in Oregon's 4th district, a woman by the name of Val Hoyle. And I asked Melissa Byrd about her reaction to the DNC saying that they were not going to break ties with AIPAC, despite voters basically begging them to.
Millions of dollars from corporations. And I actually called the incumbent out on this online, on TikTok or something. I think it was TikTok. Yeah. And I said, if you really believe in getting rid of Citizens United, how about you take all that corporate money, all those millions of dollars that you are taking, and you donate it to an organization that is helping our immigrants who have been arrested by ICE get out of custody and get their immigration status, and you stop taking corporate money and you raise money $10 at a time like the rest of us. And of course, I never heard anything from it and whatever. But but you are right. Yesterday, the DNC formally announced that they would not be cutting ties with AIPAC. Yeah. And this is the thing. What we are doing as truly progressive, regular, everyday people running for Congress in the Democratic primaries across the country is we are showing this nation that there is another way. There's actually something to vote for, right? People want something to vote for. They're tired of fighting and being on the defense. They want something to vote for. And that is what this campaign represents, what I represent. And I understand that people change, but let me tell you, I think the reason, and I've been in politics forever. So I think the reason that people honestly change is because they don't refuse to take that corporate money. Right. And then they're torn between these corporations that are holding them hostage and their people.
Yeah, very interesting. For more of my scintillating conversations with these progressive candidates, you can check out my Substack and also my brand new YouTube channel. But, the point is we really have to amplify these candidates because AIPAC will throw millions of dollars to make sure that these progressive Democratic candidates do not win. If you paid any attention to what went on in the Illinois primaries, you know that that's what they'll do. They'll do anything and they'll hide their money in shell games or other lobby groups like J Street, etc. But it's all pro-Israel lobbying money. And in the end, if they win, that means that we lose. It's this vicious, corrupt cycle of dark money. And we're putting it towards this criminal war criming machine called Israel. So we do have to make a sea change. Congress is broken. Yes, the Republicans are the worst. They are the absolute worst. No question. The Republicans win the big loser, the most corrupt, awful game. They suck beyond suck. But Democrats can be remarkably better. We don't need incremental change where Hakeem and Chuck just move us along where, we got a tiny little win. No, we need things like universal health care. We need renewable energy so we aren't dependent on polluting gas and oil and all of the stuff that's going on right now overseas and even here in our own country. We need education. We need libraries. We need a complete overhaul of Congress. We need more Ro Khannas, more Yasmin Ansaras, more Pramila Jayapals, Bernie's, AOCs, and fewer of these corporate politicians who only do what their donors tell them to. And, these progressives are out there. I've been talking with them, meeting them. And, the bottom line is we have to help them get into office because they're going to get a lot of pushback, like I said, from the AIPAC machine. And, you need to answer the question is what the answer is that will drive you. There's a million reasons that drive me to do what I'm doing right now, which is educating you guys and reporting on these issues. But, for me today, it is Sumaya. Sorry. A little girl who's a journalist, a young journalist who lost her young father. I have to tell you, when I saw that video, it gutted me and it broke my heart. It broke my heart. So I'm going to speak up for people like Sumaya in Palestine. I'm going to do that. And if there's anything that we can do to make sure that our Congress people stand up to make sure that we no longer fund war crimes like that, then damn it, I'm going to do everything I can. All right. We can't quit. I won't. So please join me. Shalom and peace to all of you.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.